Hello all, a very warm good morning. So our next session is OT SecOps, Building Security Operations in SCADA OT environment. To discuss on this and to give a very deep insight on this particular topic, we have five panelists with us. First is Dr. Sandeep Shukla, who is a professor in computer science and engineering from IIT Kanpur. Please give a very warm welcome to him, sir, please. Our next speaker is Mr. Gigi Joseph, who is a CISO in BARC. Hello, sir. I would like to welcome Mr. Didi Ismawan, who is a pre-sales manager industrial cybersecurity in Kaspersky. Hello, sir. Now I want to welcome Dr. Farooq Qazi, who is the Dean Research Development and Consultancy, Veer Mata Jijabai Technology Institute. Hello, sir. Welcome. And next we have Mr. Jaideep Ruparia, who is the CEO, co-founder of InfoPerceive Consulting. The session will be moderated by Dr. Sandeep. Over to you, sir. Thank you.
Hello. Okay. We are a bit delayed in starting, but hopefully we'll have an interesting panel. First of all, very good morning to all of you, and hopefully all of you are interested in OT security. So this session is about OT SecOps. So with us today, we have, as you have heard from Niharika, we have Professor Farooq Qazi, we have Gigi Joseph from BARC, we have Didi Ismawan from Kaspersky, and we have Mr. Jaideep Ruparelia from InfoPerceive, and I am Sandeep Shukla from IIT Kanpur. So since we are going to discuss OT security, our goal of this panel is to have some fruitful discussion so that from what we discuss, there is some actionable items for DSCI to take to the government about what needs to be done to make our national security better by addressing the gaps and addressing the issues that our collective experience tells us, so that the government can take proper legal, regulatory, and other types of human resource development types of actions. So with that in mind, I would start by saying that from our organization, we have been doing a security audit of multiple critical PSUs, which are critical for national security. And we have been finding several issues that I would like our panelists to discuss further. One of the issues that we have been seeing is that the top management, for example, chairman, deputy chairman, and other management, their reluctance to entertain cybersecurity as a major risk to their organization, but more importantly, to the national security. Second problem we are seeing is that since it is required that there should be a CISO, we find that a lot of the cases the CISO is arbitrarily chosen, and they are at a very low level of in their employment hierarchy. Thereby, their words have very little weight. Third thing we are seeing is that the IT security is the only security that that there is in these organizations, even though they have critical OT assets. Fourth thing, we are seeing that there is a lack of trained manpower in most of these organizations. And the last thing that I am worried about is that there is no visibility, there is no monitoring, and therefore when we went and looked at them, we saw even command and control traffic to foreign IP addresses, some of which are malicious. With this situation, we are obviously going to raise these issues with the pertinent organization in the government, but I think this is a much bigger issue than those specific organizations that we looked at. there are many other organizations that our panelists are much more familiar with. So I would like to see if they also see similar situation, and then we'll go into the remedials that we might propose or suggest, which DSCI can take to the government. So with that, right now, we'll have the way we want to do this panel is that we want to have about 5-minute introductory discussion from our esteemed panelists, followed by a few questions that I would ask, and then we'll open for the audience to ask questions. So the order in which I would like the panelists to start their introduction, I would request first Mr. D.D. Ismawan from Kaspersky to talk about the OT threat landscape, followed by Professor Kazi to talk about power system security, OT security in power system in India. Lots have changed in the last 1 or 2 years in that space. Regulations are coming and multiple guidelines have been brought in. So I would like him to talk about that. Then Mr. Gigi Joseph from Berk will talk about the regulatory and other issues in cybersecurity of nuclear installations. And then finally, Mr. Joydeep, he will talk from the perspective of the tool and technology that are required or that are already available in India. So I would request Didi to start.
Hello. Hello. Okay, thank you. Yes, hi. My name is Didi, and I am from Kaspersky, based out of Singapore. Yep. So for my session here, I would like to share with you the findings that we have about the OT cybersecurity landscape. Yeah. This study that we did, this information that I'm sharing with you is for the first half of 2022, and it is available at our website, ICS.kaspersky.com. So let's look at how does the landscape looks like. So what we have found in the first half of this year is that at a global level, 31.8% of ICS computers have at least been detected to contain virus, malware, or becomes a victim of cyber attack. So and the highest percentage of these comes from Africa, and the lowest is in the Northern Europe. In terms of the malware that were detected or blocked in these ICS computers that are part of our study, we have found that the malware comes from 7,219 malware families. So this could include your worms, your web miners, crypto miners, and so on. So it's a huge number. And we found that in these ICS computers, 8.6% of that, we notice the existence of spyware. In particularly in the building automation sector. It's quite prevalent with spyware. Also about we are also seeing, as mentioned, cryptocurrency miners software block in the manufacturing sector. With regards to ransomware, around the world, it has kind of like increased drastically. The percentage. If you compare it with the data that we have in 2020 and 2021, the first half of this year, the ransomware activities is at the highest. So we foresee that this will further increase. Over time. So, with regards to the regions that are most affected by these ransomware activities, East Asia is the highest, and the Middle East is in the second place. Yeah. Then we look at the different threat sources. For OT or the ICS environment, Kaspersky have identified three predominant threat sources. Number one is the internet. Number two is the removable media, such as your USB storage flash drive. And number three, email clients. So what we found is that the threat sources via the internet is increasing. Yeah. We can infer that the traction, yeah, the industry 4.0 is moving quite good. Yeah. There is good traction with the IT and OT convergence, and also that the IIoT development is taking space in the OT industry. So, by the same time, it exposes the systems in the OT environment to more threats, thus increasing the threat surface. So for the threat sources, what we can see is that based on sector, for building automation, we find that the internet and email clients, yeah, threats coming from that vectors is the highest in the building. And then for oil and gas, it's the use of removable media and as well as shared network folder. Yep. So just to cap it off, I'll just share with you what we know about the landscape in India. Yeah. So the global landscape that I shared earlier depends on not all industries are the same. Yeah. And also depends on the geopolitical geopolitical situation of the country. Yeah. So with regards to India, what we are seeing is that the number one industry that is being affected most is the oil and gas. Yeah, we are seeing an uptick of activities in the oil and gas industry, and this is followed by the energy sector. So that would be your power, yeah, and then followed by the manufacturing. So compared to the rest of the countries in the Asia Pacific region, India is not that bad. So it's one of the lowest three at about 29% of activities that were detected. Yeah, the attack vectors also differs for different countries. So what we are seeing in India is that three attack vectors. They are the malicious scripts and phishing pages. So the internet, yeah, followed by the malicious documents, right? Could be something that is downloaded again from the internet, from the email clients, yeah. Just to add, we are finding that the initial phase or the initial attack, yeah, or entry points is in the IT. Yeah, we are seeing more of those cases. Yeah, and then the malware or the threat actor, the activity spread to the OT sector. Yeah, this is as I mentioned, the convergence of IT and OT is happening. So that could be a good as well as a bad thing. Yep. So that's all I'm sharing with you on the global landscape. So I will pass to the next panelist here to share his views. Thank you.
All right. So as you had said, energy sector is one of the top three So Professor Farooq Kazi will talk about the energy sector, cybersecurity in the OT.
Yeah, thank you and good morning to all. My name is Farooq Kazi. I come from the institute called as VJTI, which is located in Mumbai, 134-year-old institute. Our journey into this OT security for energy network started somewhere in 2014 when we started doing some kind of benchmarking of the utilities from cybersecurity posture point of view in collaboration with NCIIPC. NCIIPC was just formed at that time. We thought that we will do some kind of benchmarking of 15 utilities combining together of Genco, Transco as well as Discom. But the state of affair of that time was such that people were not allowing us to do any kind of evaluation as such. One of the reason was having fear that they may get exposed with respect to the weaknesses their system has for the cybersecurity. So 15 utilities were planned and we could do the analysis only for 7 utilities. And even within those 7 utilities, the observation that we had were eye-opener to the extent that they were not qualifying even the basic hygiene of cybersecurity in their most OT concentrated segments as well. So that was the one of the observation, which then subsequently we shared 10 top finding to Ministry of Power after doing that analysis. That document is also there in the public domain. So that was the starting point probably where people were trying to understand that the energy sector is also vulnerable to cybersecurity. So what they used to feel is that we anyway do contingency planning. Can we not leverage that contingency planning for cyber attack? Because from their point of view, cyber attack is something which is disturbing their usual operation, which may probably also can happen because of the system failure as well, which are common practices like having some kind of single phase or 3-phase fault, under frequency relay getting tripped, etc. So they were always trying to compare the cyber attack with respect to the contingencies to which they were much used to. So safety and security confusion was always there. Now, whether you say thanks or whatever it may be, 2020 Mumbai incident media covered a lot with giving it some nation state actor and other type of angles. And suddenly, right from the government bodies, right from the law enforcement, to of course utilities and common public started taking interest into this. This became boardroom topic for discussion in the energy sector. And for last 2 years or so in India, and probably a decade or so globally, this area has now become much exciting area for researchers' point of view, for security companies' point of view, as well as from the other perspectives of regulations. So if you now see the current state of affairs in case of energy sector or power sector, probably a lot of awareness has happened in last 2 years. Minister of Power has taken a very serious note, at least about the cyber hygiene, and a lot of curricula been developed by NPTI and other such agencies of Ministry of Power, wherein each and every employee of the energy network is adequately being briefed about the better practices of cybersecurity. So if I can trace and find out what is the current status, then at least from the awareness point of view, in the last 2 years, we are having adequate awareness about these security issues. We also now have a lot of regulatory compliances and other things which are made mandatory. So this power sector is very strongly regulatory dominant in the sense that whatever they wish to do, they will await always some kind of letter to come from Minister of Power or some regulatory bodies. So 2021, we got a regulation from CEA, and that gave some kind of direction in which people are required to be making their cybersecurity posture much secure. So awareness is now very well, at least in India. The regulatory compliances are now made mandatory. What I feel while interacting with many utilities now is the fear which is now being embedded with the news which are coming every month. Last 2 months back, we had some ransomware news of Tata Power in Mumbai. There are a couple of such kind of news which are coming up. Now that is creating what I personally feel, and probably that is the feeling of the community as well, that there is a fear psychosis which is being created that may adversely affect digitization process as well. And what people are also trying to do is, in an attempt of encashing that fear psychosis, the solutions which probably are well accepted for IT domain are being pushed across for OT domain as well, which is probably a wrong kind of notion, which may be in future creating even more security vulnerabilities. The reason is one need to understand the cybersecurity solutions which are there for IT probably are counterproductive for OT, in the sense that VAPT is much mature kind of area in IT, but if you try to do penetration testing for OT environment, you never know how the OT device will respond to that. Even if you want to run a simple Nmap, you will not at all be having any idea the way in which your devices will behave. So in always we say that in live network, production network, we should not go for the penetration testing. Probably VA is still okay. One more thing that I'm personally observing is a lot of security solutions which are of course well established in the IT domain. For example, intrusion prevention system, IPS. That can never work in OT environment where your devices are having constrained computation power and constrained bandwidth. Because if your IPS start pinging actively and putting in the traffic in your network where the OT traffic has to go in a much prioritized way. For example, teleprotection devices which are connected on certain network where the same kind of pinging is happening for the IPS, probably it will be a counterproductive one. So what I feel, and that may be feeling of other expert as well, is we need to judge, evaluate which particular solutions of IT can be borrowed and be maybe used for securing OT environment. But at the very same time, we can also try to see what can be the devices specially designed for the OT. So nowadays, there are some endpoint firewalls, which people call as OT firewalls, which are coming in picture. People are talking about data diodes, which are coming in the OT environment, so as to at least ensure a degree of air gap, which is vanishing now very fast because of IoT and other type of digitization initiatives which are happening. So a lot of other devices also coming up. And maybe rather than relying on a single device or so, defense in depth kind of architecture, or maybe zero trust architecture, or maybe the monitoring of electrical perimeter or electronic perimeter, segmentation of networking, etc. These can be some of those solutions. Particularly, I was also involved in the investigation of Mumbai incident which happened 2020. And while doing some kind of analysis, we realized that although there was a firewall, it was not configured in a much better way, which was supposed to be. So even with the existing devices, if they are hardened properly, we might be improvising our solution or our security posture a much better way. So there are many novel solutions which are also coming up, which can be evaluated and maybe which can be put into use. So the current state of art, if you see, as far as the utility sector in India is concerned, is that we are risen to the reality. Earlier, we used to discard all such kind of deliberations and discussions with single word of air gap. At least now we are realized that there is nothing like air gap, and we are trying to look in for the solution. But we need to keep our eyes open and try to judge, evaluate appropriately which devices will indeed be useful and which may be counterproductive down the line, which may be adding some more hackable points in our system. So these are some of my initial thoughts. Probably as the question answer session evolves, we may be having more and more discussion on this. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's actually really interesting. The evolution between 2014 to 2000, actually most of the activities started in 2020 and it's going at a very fine pace with the leadership of Ministry of Power, CEA and others. So now coming to a much bigger, more dangerous area where nuclear power plants. DD will talk about the security issues there and what he's seeing, in the attempts there and for cyber attack and what security posture they're maintaining.
Thank you, sir. Good morning to all of you. In India, nuclear industry handled by Department of Atomic Energy. Atomic Energy has got around 31 departments. And Baba Atomic Research Center focus on R&D, where I come from. And Nuclear Power Corporation focused on nuclear power productions. And other departments works in various other nuclear related facilities. In nuclear industry, there are 4 pillars. One is safety, security, then safeguard. Safeguard is basically, it is not there in any of the industry. It is prevention of spreading of nuclear weapon technology to other states. Then emergency preparedness. When it comes to the cyber security in OT environment, I see there are 2 major challenges. One is sabotage of facilities by equipment failure. It can be in the form of supply chain, software or hardware, any firmware update. That is one aspect. Second is sabotage of cyber physical system. And after sabotage, you can take out the nuclear material. These are the 2 major cyber security issues in the nuclear sector. Now, when you come to a nuclear reactor, there are many subsystems involved. The core part is nuclear reactor, where nuclear fission takes place. We all studied how fission happened in our school time. Basically, a neutron strikes on a fissile material. It will break into multiple isotope, also create some neutrons, also releases some energy. That released neutron will further strikes to further fissile material. That is basically called as a chain reaction. The energy released will be taken out using a coolant. Coolant is generally normal water or a heavy water to steam generator. The steam output will be given to turbine, turbine output given to generator. It's common to a normal system. When you come to the nuclear, the reactor, the most important is how to control neutrons, production. Suppose emergency, I want to shut down. I want to shut down the reactor. That case can happen. Even all power supply, all computer-based systems also compromise. Suppose there is a condition, still it should be shut down. For that, a fail-safe design is being done. Simple way of looking is, the neutron absorbing materials are kept holding above the reactor core. It is holding like this. Suppose the power, everything is shut down, whatever the holding can fall down due to gravity. So in that way, the reactor can safely shut down. And this type of systems are called classifications of IA category. So various classifications are there. One is the emergency shutdown is of IA category. And other category computer-based systems are used. One is IB, where reactor powers are being regulated. There we are using, every system will have a redundant and it should be time tested in-house hardware software built. Then another category is basically IC, basically monitor various parameters around the system. Now the data flow can happen from highest classification to next like that. In India, safety security of a nuclear is handled by an independent regulator, that is called Atomic Energy Regulatory Body. Any system which is used in the reactor should qualify, and that qualification will be based on the category. And AERB appoint verification validation team. Their members, all the experts across the country are part of the team. They will verify how a system need to be qualified, tested, then only it can be implemented. And AERB verifies, basically does the audit periodically. Based on that, only operating license are given. Is it all? I think some basic idea we have told. We can have a discussion further. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Didi. So you mentioned a very important thing about supply chain, and this is one of the major concerns we have in Indian OT sector. Majority of our PLC, SCADA, etc., are built by outside vendors, which they have to have their right practices and so on. Also the tools and technologies also need to be better to have indigenous footprints. So now I would request Jaideep to shed light on that part.
Very good morning, all. This is Jaideep Ruparelia. For me, I started learning cybersecurity since 2004 and I'm still learning. So that's the background. Initially, I started with offensive security, then did a lot of enterprise security, risk management, did a lot of enterprise security solution implementation and did compliance also. So that's been the background. And since 2014, we started InfoPercept in India, wherein we had our own journey starting from building our the security practice, where we started offensive, then the 24/7 security operations. Then we have a technology now, which we started developing since 2019, and we had our own journey, which has been built with 4 different modules. The module is like the defender's brain, where we do detection and response, the attacker's mind, where we support improvising the overall detection and the response capability, and then the attacker's action, where we support all in terms of testing just like an attacker. So that's the attacker's action that we have. And then we have the compliance and culture platform. So that's the 4 different modules that we have built with the journey. And the way that started happening with us was like we were covering the landscape where initially it was more of on-premises, then with the cloud getting more penetrated with all the industries, we started supporting the DevSecOps, all the requirements of the cloud security. We were scaling globally. Our technology was being used by a lot of global clients, banking clients worldwide. And then the way I got into OT was a few of the industry from GCC countries and the other places. They started talking to us like, since you are already managing our security operations, how can you contribute to our OT security? We are very new. We started getting deeper, started understanding the problem. So maybe as Farooq sir already mentioned, that whatever we have built on the IT is something that cannot be immediately, or it cannot be replicated as it is in the OT environment, because OT environment are older than IT and probably the landscape is completely different. So what we did is, it was one dairy industry which was using OT a lot, and they wanted us to do their security operations. Still we have not done and we are not doing. Same, we had an oil and gas industry in Saudi Arabia who wants us to manage their overall operations, the OT operations. But what we did is we got in touch with DSCI. We formed an overall community here, the ecosystem, where we have people from the institutes who have been researching on the subject, from the industry who can define the problem for us, and we are setting up the complete lab for testing all that we have built and how it can be utilized in the OT, and wherever there is a gap, how we can build that very specific to OT, so that we can help customers with the technology as well as the services that we have built so far. So that's the story and the background that I wanted to share.
Okay, thank you. So I have a couple of questions for the panelists, but given that we have about 15 minutes left, maybe less. So I would first like to see if there are any burning questions from the audience that we should address first. Any questions? Yes.
I work in the healthcare sector where there are a lot of biomedical devices. Some fall in, there's a concept called IoT, Internet of Healthcare Things, clinical devices. Some fall into the IT embedded space, some fall into the classic OT space like the manufacturing sector. One of the biggest challenges we find is visibility of the devices. And plain and simple, if I can't see, I won't be able to manage. So say for example, tools
what he was saying, I won't be able to kind of utilize any of those tools to be able to manage my OT. So any thoughts on how do you exactly think, this visibility can be actually obtained in the OT space, what we have already obtained in the IT space?
What kind of devices are we talking about? Are this surgery devices or patient monitoring devices?
If you walk into a hospital, any type of device you see
Yeah.
falls into the space of biomedical devices. And then
Correct.
some devices are, say for example, IT embedded systems, which essentially means that I have a Windows, probably there are still Windows 7 embedded, but let's consider Windows 10 embedded. There are some systems which run on some flavor of Linux. I would consider typical OT kind of systems. But I'll take whatever you will have to share.
Okay. Yeah.
So it depends upon whether you are talking about the devices which are connected to internet or devices which are connected to Ethernet. So in case if you're talking about healthcare devices which are there on the internet, then probably you can see a search engine called as Shodan. So it's like Google where you search any string and you find out wherever it exists. Similarly for healthcare or for that matter OT devices, globally wherever they are there with certain keywords related to either protocol or the OEM, you can search whether those devices are currently present in what particular location, in what protocol they are communicating. So SHOD and Shodan is the one search engine which allows you to search or discover such kind of devices. That is number one. Number two is if these devices are there in some kind of Ethernet, then there are a lot of solutions which are available with many companies, OT companies. They sometimes package this as IDS, the part of their IDS. And what they do is basically they put their device as a listening device on the switch, network switch or router or span port, and they capture PCAP files. And from that PCAP file, they do the asset discovery and identify which are those devices connected on that network. So either of these two, if your devices are anywhere, either Ethernet or Internet, you may probably be in a position to discover that.
Yeah, so you need some kind of an endpoint agent on your devices, lightweight because most of your devices are probably not going to be tolerant to high resource usage from this monitoring. We have developed some of that for Windows devices, so it's not that difficult to develop. So there are solutions you can probably. I don't think that hospitals are actively looking for the solutions. That's the problem. Like given the AIMS situation, what we read in the news, there was basically no cybersecurity whatsoever. Anybody else wants to say anything about this question? Okay. Any other questions? Yes.
So, like you said that we can, the same question. So, you said that we can put the devices that can do the passive listening. Okay, that can capture the traffic, that they can understand what are the devices in that environment. But sometimes what happens in maybe in the medical area, we have the devices which are not always communicating. Right. So these are in the passive state, they are not communicating. So how we can identify those devices? Because we don't have those traffic.
No, so it's not always traffic based. There are endpoint security solutions which also look at the kernel level activities, system call activities, and also look at file integrity, presence of any processes that seems to be suspicious, depending on how heavy you want to do the agent. So depending on what is your threat model. If your threat model is very encompassing, then you have to provide little more feature to your endpoint agents. And
the thing is because in OT, we cannot install the agents. There are a lot of other things also. So let's say if you install the agent, they will not going to allow you OEM side of that because the system will not be stable and they have not tested those things.
Right. So
another challenge that other challenge is also that if you are doing the probing and if you are
right.
so that can unstable.
So I think, and I would ask the panelists to also respond. I think it cannot be done directly by the end user. It has to be mediated by the OEM, and the OEM has to test the agent is not interfering with the functions and features of this device. So but once the conversation starts, then only OEM and so end user may actually can express their threat perception and contact the OEM, and the OEM and some security solution provider has to work together to do this. That's my view. Any other view?
Yeah, just to add on this IDS passive listening solution that you are looking at. For the most part, this network monitoring system that you're looking at is in a passive mode. Yeah, they are listening. But I do know of some solutions from vendors that embedded lightweight clients, yeah, that will not be intrusive to your network, yeah, that can communicate more, that it may help to discover the devices, yeah, in an active manner. Kaspersky term, what we call them, is kind of like an active polling. Yeah, so this works for devices that does not communicate all the time. Yeah, even though I would say personally, my experience is that an IDS system, as long as there's an ICMP communication, we'll be able to discover it. Yeah, some information about the IP address, the MAC address can be discovered, but maybe information about the operating system, the patch level, and so on may not be easily discovered with passive scanning. So some level of active scanning needs, or active polling, I would say, needs to be embedded there, right, considered. So my advice is to evaluate. Yeah, there are vendors out there that have those solutions that can help you in your situation.
Quick question. So one comment that I have to them is it depends on whether you're looking outside in or inside out. Either way, there are a lot of tools available to look at the devices, scan them, and get to know what devices you have. The question to the panel is, from a cybersecurity maturity of the utilities in India, I know you briefly touched upon it, but looking at, say, the past 5 years, has it increased? Has it been the same? Has it gone bad? Or what is your take on that? The cybersecurity maturity of the utilities in India.
Well, as Professor Kazi has mentioned, that in 2014 nobody wants to even consider it, and now we have guidelines which are kind of binding on, let's say, in power utilities. So obviously the maturity, it seems to me, has gone back up. But if you actually measure using a C2M2 model or some kind of a model,
Right.
they will probably be still in the same level,
Right.
which is probably level 0
Right.
or level 1. But within that level, if you look at the green versus red, it has come a long way from where I can see. And Farooq might be able
Right. Yeah. The reason I asked is I agree that it has increased, but then so has the threat vectors and then the bad actors, right? So that's the reason that even we might probably have to go in a faster pace compared to them, right? So I was just
years I have personally observed much faster pace than
Okay, good.
two
Yeah,
years
good.
before.
Okay, good. Yeah. So I was just curious. Yeah. Because these are essentially low-hanging fruits, right? So it's easier to target industrial control systems, OT systems. So I was curious. Thanks.
Yeah, surely there is plus delta as compared to last 10 years. What we can very confidently say is everybody has agreed on presence of elephant in the room. To that extent, we are indeed definitely gone ahead. One of the quite popular attack model is MITRE attack framework. There are quite a few more who are there. So cyber kill chain is very well established as far as OT, or for that matter energy network, is concerned. So that part is very well matured and stable. Now going to the VA PT part, VA is also very well established, because you see now the CEA and MOP has mandated the audit of every 6 months from certain empaneled auditor. So VA is very well matured. Only PT is something that people are not permitting in the live environment or production environment. So there is some difficulty. And another difficulty is in terms of the SCADA forensic. So PT and SCADA forensic are not yet matured to the level where they are there in the IT domain.
Sir, as I mentioned in nuclear, if you want to do any software upgrade or a system change, it has to be Atomic Energy Regulatory Board will appoint a verification validation committee, and they have to do all verifications. Start from when you do any system development, we go for all verifications. You can say industry, we can say it equivalent to EL4 levels. For a software, it goes through the code verifications, and verification you will look at the traceability forward as well as backward. That is why if you look at in India, a nuclear reactor from start to commissioning, it takes minimum 5 to 6 years. Because of the entire process, there is no way it can be reduced to below 5 years. Maximum is 5 years. If all the people are working 24/7, then also it takes 5 years because of this such rigorous verification validation. That is why in India did not see any nuclear accident because of such rigorous qualification verifications are there. Thank you.
So Niharika tells me that we have 4 minutes. So I would like before we end, every panelist to give a 30-second final thought because we don't have much time left. So let's start from that end.
So thank you for this opportunity. Maybe we are a cybersecurity company, so most of the time we see Israelis and Americans building something out of OT security or other security products. But as InfoPercept, we definitely intend to and will make it happen that we build a right OT security solution based out of India. So that's the role take that we have.
Sir, OT of the nuclear is very complex. Don't expect a CISO will have a full understanding of the entire OT systems. What we have done is, we have a INC security team for each facility. Nuclear power plant is a one facility. There are a number of other facilities associated with nuclear. INC team and an ISO appointed for the each plant, and there is a security program. And CISO will work with the team to secure the facility. Thank you.
Yeah, just to add with regards to OT security, we can see that there is a high level of activities going on across the board. So if you are an asset owner or responsible for the assets in your organization, OT assets in your organization, my recommendation or advice is that you get, you evaluate solution from reputable vendors, that are active in the OT sector. So they will have the right tools for the right environment. I think that's the key word here that I would like to share. Thank you.
Yeah, so I think these are exciting times for at least energy sector, and the steps are taken in the right direction. What I feel is 4 directions need to be strengthened. First one is, in our country, we do not have product testing capabilities. Although it is mandated in the CEA guideline for CPRI, but the capacity building of those organizations needs to be done. That is number 1. Number 2, based upon the analysis of Mumbai grid incident, we realized we don't have OT forensic playbook ready currently, because we found that a lot of evidences were lost in between when we started investigating. So maybe SCADA forensic is one of the area where one need to be focusing a lot onto that. The third one is, although we are saying as per the guidelines of CEA that incident response should happen in 24 hours or so, probably it is too much of ask, because unlike BFS and other sector where you can immediately find out that there is some cyber incident, in energy network, identifying whether it was a cyber incident or it was a system failure which caused the outage in itself takes many hours or probably days. So that also, I think the regulators need to be informed about the issues of the power sector. And the fourth one that I feel is we do not have indigenous companies or startups in this space, because we cannot rely on the foreign companies in the security space for long. Probably we can bridge the gap immediate that is needed because of the other adversaries which are nation state actors. But at one point of time, we should have our own capabilities to safeguard our critical infrastructure. So these are four possible directions that I think of. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I would add also there is a huge lack of manpower, especially in OT security. So we need the government to do something about this, and various institutions also to do something about this. There is a very few places where such education, training, etc. are available. Even though NPTI is trying, but it's very short course. It cannot make somebody expert in OT security. The other thing that I would say, and it was actually the thought came to me from these questions in the medical device field, that in many cases it's the user agencies that need to provide their threat perception to the regulating agency like Ministry of Health, so that the Ministry of Health can initiate some program by which they mandate the OEMs to actually work on security and monitoring and survey, the visibility issues. So because many times people who are doing the regulation, they're busy with many different aspects of regulation, not necessarily what the end user is feeling. So we need to do that in every sector, not only in medical sector, but in particular medical sector seems to be something not in the radar of regulators, but otherwise also I think there is a lot of work to be done from academics to training institutes to the regulators, to the end users, and the manufacturers. So there is a lot of things to be done. Maturity in this OT security field in India is still at a very low level, and we need to step that up, and we need to do something that makes India a lot more self-reliant on this. And with that, I will thank all the panelists for coming here and giving us their wonderful thoughts, and DSCI also for organizing this, and Niharika for running this whole from the very planning to completion.
Thank you so
we'll
much, Professor.
see you later in some other time.